What happens when one of the most famous royals of our time walks into the studio of America's most unfiltered radio host? You get one of the most shocking interviews ever broadcast. Prince Harry thought he was walking into just another promotional stop to talk about his projects. But Howard Stern is not Oprah, not James Corden, and definitely not a host who plays by polite rules. From the moment Harry stepped into the Sirius XM studios, the tension was already there, thick enough to cut with a knife. According to people backstage, Harry had made it clear that some topics were completely off-limits. He wanted to talk about mental health, about his Netflix deal, maybe even about life in California with Meghan. What he didn't want was another grilling about the royal family or the criticism he and Meghan have faced. But that's exactly what Howard Stern is known for, pushing past walls and asking the questions that nobody else dares to ask. Harry walked in with his entourage of handlers, each one carrying notes and watching the studio like security guards. Stern, however, leaned back casually, with his usual smirk. It was a scene Harry probably hadn't faced before, a man who wasn't intimidated by his royal title, his fame, or his carefully rehearsed talking points. Howard began the interview with a deceptively simple question. "So, Harry," he said, his New York accent sharp, "you're here to promote your Netflix documentary. But let me ask you, don't you think people are getting tired of hearing you say how hard your life was, when you grew up with more privilege than almost anyone in the world?" The air froze. It was the kind of question Harry probably never hears, because most interviewers tiptoe around him. His smile faltered, just for a second, before he gave the practiced response, "I think there's a difference between complaining and sharing your authentic experience. Mental health affects everyone, regardless of wealth or privilege." It was a good answer. But Howard wasn't convinced. He leaned forward, his voice turning sharper. "Mental health, sure. But let's be real. You've made millions off your trauma. You got a $100 million Netflix deal. A best-selling book. Podcasts. Interviews. At what point is it not about helping others and just about making money off your story?" That question cut deep. Harry's team shifted nervously. Harry tried to stay calm. "That's a very cynical view," he said. "When people share their stories of trauma, it helps others going through similar pain." But Howard wasn't buying it. He mocked the word itself. Trauma? Let me tell you what trauma is. Trauma is growing up with no food, no father, no safety. Trauma isn't getting the wrong breakfast at your private estate. The room grew silent. Even Robin, Howard's co-host, muttered, "Oh boy," under her breath. Harry clenched his jaw. For the first time, the prince who had been trained to handle press pressure looked cornered. "That's dismissive," Harry snapped, his voice a little louder now. "The death of my mother, constant harassment from the press, the racism my wife experienced, those are real forms of trauma." But Stern cut him off with a sarcastic laugh. "Ah, here we go again with the racism card. Every time someone criticizes you or Meghan, it's racism. Could it be, just maybe, that some people think you're entitled brats who complain while living in mansions? Or is every bad headline automatically racism?" Harry's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but Stern kept going, relentless. "And another thing, you keep saying you want privacy, but then you go on Netflix, write books, do interviews with everyone. If you want privacy, why are you selling your story to the highest bidder? Isn't that a little hypocritical?" The word hung in the air. Hypocrisy. It's the one criticism Harry has never been able to shake off. His answer sounded defensive. "We share our story on our terms, to fight the lies and misinformation about us." Howard leaned back, smirking again. "Your terms? Sounds more like your business model." His laughter echoed through the studio, not the kind of laugh that invites you in, but the kind that tells you you've already lost. Harry tried to recover, but the damage was done. His carefully planned talking points had been shredded by Howard's blunt, brutal style. The handlers looked helpless. The studio audience, usually friendly during Harry's appearances, was quiet, maybe even uncomfortable. By the end, Harry looked drained, cornered, almost like he had walked into an ambush. Stern never raised his voice, never shouted, but he kept exposing contradictions in Harry's narrative. For the first time in years, Prince Harry wasn't in control of the story. This wasn't a Netflix special, or a friendly podcast, or a chat with Oprah. This was Howard Stern, A man who doesn't bow to crowns, titles, or media training. And it showed. So, what do you think? Was Howard Stern too harsh on Prince Harry, or did he simply say what so many people have been thinking all along? Did Harry defend himself well, or did Stern expose the cracks in his carefully built public image? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with friends who follow the royals, because this is one interview people will be talking about for a long time. The moment was already tense, but things reached a boiling point when Howard Stern leaned in with the sharpness that has defined his career. He didn't hold back. "Harry," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm, "everyone has opinions about you. People say you turned your back on your family, ran to California, and now you're making money by attacking the very monarchy that gave you your title. Let me ask you straight, if you hate being a royal so much, why not give it up? Why do you still call yourself the Duke of Sussex if you don't want anything to do with the monarchy?" The question hit like a bullet. Harry's face tightened, and for the first time, he struggled to keep his cool. His team of handlers were frantically signaling him to stop, probably begging him to change the subject before things got worse. But Harry wasn't going to back down. Years of pent-up frustration from safe, controlled interviews finally cracked open. "You know what, Howard?" Harry snapped, his voice carrying a new edge. "I came here thinking we could have a serious conversation about issues that matter. But clearly, you're more interested in cheap shots and tabloid-level gossip than anything real." Howard smirked, his eyes lighting up like a predator who'd just been challenged. He leaned forward in his chair, speaking with icy calm. "So I'm the bad guy for asking you real questions? Maybe you'd rather sit with Oprah again, where no one pushes back. You can cry about your struggles while everyone nods along. But guess what? On my show, I don't kiss anyone's ass. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all." The tension in the studio was unbearable. Robin, Howard's longtime co-host, whispered nervously, "Oh boy," knowing what was about to happen. Then Howard went in for the kill. He leaned back with a grin that showed he was about to land the biggest blow yet. "You know what I think, Harry? You're jealous. Plain and simple. Jealous that your brother will be king, while you're stuck making Netflix shows and writing books for attention. All this talk about mental health and protecting your family, it's just a cover. You're the spare who couldn't handle being second place." The words struck Harry like a hammer. His face flushed, his jaw tightened, and his voice shook with anger. "How dare you?" he said, almost in a whisper. Then louder, "How dare you reduce my life to jealousy? You have no idea what it's like to lose a parent the way I did. To watch my mother's death turned into a circus by the press. To see my wife suffer relentless attacks that drove her to the brink." But Howard wasn't backing down. If anything, Harry's emotional outburst only energized him. "Spare me the drama," Howard shot back, his tone merciless. "Your mother died over 2 decades ago. Yes, it was tragic. But you can't use that as an excuse for every decision you've made since. And as for Meghan, destroyed? Please. She's a millionaire living in a mansion in Montecito. If that's destruction, then sign me up." Harry's hands were shaking. The calm, media-trained prince had vanished, replaced by raw fury. "She was suicidal, Howard," Harry shouted, his voice cracking. "My wife was pushed to the point where she wanted to take her own life because of the treatment she received. And you sit here making jokes about it? Do you think this is some kind of game?" Howard's reply was brutal. "If she was truly suicidal, why didn't you just leave quietly? Why the Oprah special? Why the Netflix deals? Why turn her pain into profit? If I loved someone in crisis, I'd get them help, not build a media empire around their suffering." The studio froze. The words hung heavy in the air. Harry's breathing grew ragged. His team desperately motioned for him to end it, but he was too far gone. "You're sick," Harry spat, his voice shaking with rage. "You get off on tearing people apart for ratings. You mock trauma, you mock pain, because you have nothing real in your own life. No wonder your relationships are disasters. Who could love someone so cruel?" That was the line that shifted everything. Howard's smirk faded, replaced by a deadly calm. He leaned forward, his tone colder than ever. So we're getting personal now, huh? Fine. Let's talk personal. Where were you when your grandfather was dying? Signing deals in Hollywood. Where were you when your grandmother, the woman who gave you everything, needed you? Hiding in California, playing the victim. She gave you protection, love, privilege, and you repaid her by abandoning her in her final years. And now you want the world to pity you. The words detonated like a bomb. Harry shot to his feet, his chair screeching against the floor. His face was blazing red. "Don't you dare talk about my grandmother!" he shouted, his voice breaking with rage. "Don't you dare drag her into your disgusting little game." Howard didn't flinch. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Sit down. We're not done. You came to my show, you play by my rules. And my rule is we don't stop until we get to the truth." Harry let out a bitter laugh, though his body was trembling. "The truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face. All you care about is tearing people down. You mock pain, you mock grief, and you think it makes you powerful. But it just makes you pathetic." The room went silent. Everyone in the studio knew they were watching history, an interview so explosive it would dominate headlines for weeks. Harry stood, fists clenched, refusing to sit down. Howard sat coolly in his chair, unmoved, eyes locked on the prince like a hunter staring down prey. And in that moment, it was clear, this was no ordinary interview. This was war. Prince Harry's voice was sharp, shaking with anger as he fired back. "You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face. The truth is you're nothing more than a bitter old man. You've spent your whole career tearing people down just so you can feel powerful, because deep down, your own life is empty. That's the only way you know how to matter, by destroying others." Howard Stern didn't flinch. Instead, he stood up, towering with the confidence that came from decades of dominating radio. His voice cut through the tense studio. "No, the truth is this, you're spoiled. You've never worked a real day in your life. Everything was handed to you, but the moment you weren't the center of attention, you ran away. You didn't just leave quietly, you dragged your family's pain into the spotlight and turned it into a business. You're weak, Harry. Weak and selfish." The words stung. Harry's face twisted with emotion as he shot back, his voice breaking. "Weak? You think I'm weak? I served in Afghanistan while you sat in a studio making prank calls. I've worked to help veterans, to support mental health causes, to fight for something bigger than myself. What have you ever done except mock people's pain to get ratings?" Howard leaned forward, his tone even harsher now. "I've entertained millions for 40 years. I've built an empire by being honest, by saying what people are too scared to say. I don't hide behind charity events or victim stories just to dodge accountability. And I sure as hell don't betray the very system that gave me everything, then cry when people call me out." The studio was suffocating with tension. Harry's security guards were on edge, while Howard's team looked frozen, watching the battle escalate like a boxing match. Howard's voice rose again. "You want to know the real truth? You're exactly like your father. Weak. Entitled. Out of touch. The only difference is Charles had the dignity to take it in silence. You turned your whole life into a circus, begging the world to feel sorry for you." That hit Harry like a punch to the gut. His face flushed red, and for a split second, it looked like he might actually throw a punch. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "Don't you dare," Harry growled. "Don't you dare compare me to him. You don't know anything about me, about my father, about my family. You sit in your little booth, judging everyone, but you're nothing. Nothing at all." Howard's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped low, dangerous. "You think I'm nothing? At least I own what I am. I didn't run from my responsibilities. I didn't abandon my duty because life got hard. You pretend to be a hero, but the truth is simple, you're a coward." The word landed like a blade. Howard leaned in closer, twisting the knife. "You left because it was tough. Not because of racism. Not because of mental health. Not because you wanted to protect Meghan. You left because you couldn't handle the pressure. You've never done anything hard in your life, Harry. Never." Harry's face drained of color. His breathing grew shallow, his body trembling with rage. "Stop," he whispered, but Howard wasn't finished. "You want to talk about your mother?" Howard's voice shifted to a mocking tone that made even his own crew shift uncomfortably. "Diana would be ashamed of you. She faced the same pressure, the same spotlight, and she didn't run. She stayed and fought. She didn't flee to California to complain from a mansion while cashing Netflix checks." That was the breaking point. Harry exploded. "How dare you?" he roared, his voice cracking with fury. "How dare you use my mother's name like that? You didn't know her. You have no right to say what she would think. None." Howard didn't back down. He shouted over him. "I have every right. This is my show. I'll say whatever I damn well want. And I'll say this, your mother died fighting for something real, while you hide behind victimhood, whining about how tough life is." Harry stepped forward, his security rushing to intercept. His voice was shaking, but it was filled with venom. "You're disgusting. You feed on pain like a vulture. You profit off misery and call it entertainment. No wonder nobody can stand you." Howard let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "My audience. At least they're honest. They don't pretend to care while stabbing me in the back. Unlike you, pretending you're too good for this interview, but still showing up here to sell your book, your series, your story. You came to me, Harry. You wanted this." "I never wanted this," Harry snapped. "Being here was a mistake. The biggest mistake I've made since moving to America." Howard threw his hands up with a sarcastic grin. "Finally. Honesty. Yes, Harry, it was a mistake, because you thought you could control me like you do Oprah or those magazine profiles. But this is my arena. You don't win here. I do." Harry was pacing now, looking like a caged animal. His handlers begged him with their eyes to leave, but he couldn't stop. His rage was boiling over. "You're delusional. This wasn't manipulation. This was me trying to have a decent conversation with someone I thought was a professional. But you're not professional. You're cruel, heartless, empty." Howard smirked. "And yet, you're still here." The studio was dead silent, everyone holding their breath. The standoff between the two men had reached a point of no return. Harry sat in silence for a moment, his chest still rising and falling as he struggled to calm himself. The tension in the studio was so heavy you could almost feel it in the air. Howard leaned back in his chair, smug and unbothered, as if everything had gone exactly the way he wanted. "Professional?" Howard scoffed. "Kid, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. The difference is I'm honest about it. I tear people down for entertainment, and I don't hide it. You act like you're some great humanitarian, but all you're really doing is cashing in on your pain." Harry's jaw tightened. His voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper. "That's it. I'm done. This interview is over." He pulled off his headphones and stood, but Howard wasn't finished. "Oh no, you don't just storm out and play the victim again," Howard barked. "You came on my show. You answer my questions. That's how this works." Harry spun around, his eyes blazing. "I don't answer to you. I don't answer to anyone anymore. That's the whole point of leaving. But you," he jabbed a finger toward Howard, "you'll never understand that." Howard stood, voice sharp. "Then why are you still using your royal title? Why still call yourself the Duke of Sussex if you're so independent? Why not just drop it and be Harry Windsor, private citizen? You want freedom, right? Then let it go." The studio went silent. For the first time, Harry looked caught off guard. His lips parted, but no words came. Everyone stared, waiting for an answer that didn't come. Howard smirked. "Exactly what I thought. Without that title, you're nothing. Without being a prince, you're just another celebrity with daddy issues and a microphone no one listens to." That was the breaking point. Harry ripped the headphones from the table and hurled them across the room, the crash echoing like a gunshot. "You're sick," he shouted. "You're actually sick. I feel sorry for anyone who has to deal with you." Howard laughed. "Feel sorry for yourself, kid. You're the one who's going to live knowing you let everyone down." Harry's face hardened. His voice shook, but his words cut deep. "No, Howard. I pity you. I pity a man who thinks tearing others apart is success. You sit here day after day, making money off cruelty. What a sad, empty way to live." He turned and headed for the door, his security rushing to follow. Howard called after him one last time. "Hey, Harry, thanks for proving me right. Don't let the door hit you on your way back to irrelevance." Harry froze for half a second, hand on the doorknob, then simply shook his head and walked out. The studio fell into stunned silence. Howard sat back down, a sly grin spreading across his face. He tapped his microphone. "Well, folks, I think that went pretty well. What do you think?" His co-host Robin managed only a shocked whisper. "Oh my God!" Howard laughed, turning back to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Harry has officially left the building. And let this be a lesson. When entitled celebrities come in here thinking they can control the narrative, they lose. Every single time." By the time Harry's car left the SiriusXM building, clips of the clash were already hitting social media. Millions would soon watch, react, and argue over who came out on top. For Howard, it was another viral victory. For Harry, it was a brutal reminder that some fights can't be won, especially on someone else's turf. But one thing was certain. This interview would be remembered as one of the most explosive confrontations in live radio history. Backhand index pointing right. What do you think? Was Howard too harsh, or did Harry finally get a taste of his own medicine? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next big celebrity showdown.